The morning sun rose slowly over the small apartment block where James lived. The walls were thin, the paint was old, but for him and his little daughter Mia, it was home. James stood in front of a cracked mirror, adjusting the tie he had borrowed. From a neighbor, his hands shook slightly, not because the tie was too tight, but because this day meant everything. It was the day of his big job interview. After months of searching, after dozens of rejections, this company finally called him back. If he could get this job, he could pay rent on time, buy Mia her school, books, maybe even replace her torn shoes. For once, life might stop pushing him down. "Daddy, are you ready?" Mia's small voice came from the kitchen. She was only 7, but her eyes carried the weight of someone older. She had seen her father struggle, work nights, and still smile at her each morning. James forced a grin. "I'm ready, sweetheart." He grabbed her lunchbox from the table. "Let's walk fast. Daddy has to catch the bus." The streets were busy with people rushing to work. The city never slowed down. And today, James felt the pressure of every ticking second. The interview was at 9 a.m. sharp. He had already planned his route: bus, then subway, then a short walk. If everything went right, he would arrive with a few minutes to spare. As they turned the corner, James saw her, an old woman, standing near the bus stop, struggling with 2 heavy bags of groceries. One of the bags had ripped open and apples rolled across the sidewalk. She bent down, her hands shaking, trying to pick them up. People walked past quickly, eyes forward, pretending not to notice. James froze. His heart pounded. Every second counted. If he stopped, he might be late. This interview was his only chance to give Mia a better future. Yet Mia tugged on his sleeve and whispered, "Daddy, she needs help," for a moment. James felt torn apart inside. He could hear his own thoughts clashing. "If I help, I lose my chance. If I walk away, I betray what I taught my daughter about kindness." Mia looked up at him, her big brown eyes shining. She didn't say another word. She didn't need to. Her silence was enough. James sighed deeply. He set down Mia's lunchbox and rushed forward. "Here, let me help you," he said, picking up the fallen apples. The old woman's tired eyes filled with relief. "Thank you, young man. These are too heavy for me." He lifted the bags with ease and carried them across the street to her building. The bags cut into his fingers. But he didn't complain. Behind him, Mia skipped along, humming softly, as if she already knew this was the right choice. The woman smiled as they reached her door. "You are kind. Most people would have ignored me." "May God bless you." James gave her a polite nod, but inside his chest, panic had begun to rise. He looked at his watch, 8:55 a.m. His stomach turned cold. "Come on, Mia. We need to run." They rushed back to the bus stop, but the bus was already gone. James clenched his jaw. Another bus came 15 minutes later. By then, his interview. Time had passed. Still, he didn't give up. He dragged Mia along, changing trains, running through the subway, pushing himself to move faster. At 9:30 a.m., James finally arrived at the tall glass building. His shirt was damp with sweat. His tie was crooked. His breath came in short gasps. He pushed open the doors, praying there was still a chance, inside the lobby. Polished marble floors reflected his worried face. The receptionist looked up from her desk. "Can I help you, sir?" "I am here for the interview. James Carter, 9 o'clock, he stammered. The woman tapped on her tablet. Her expression softened slightly, but her words were sharp. "I'm sorry, sir. The interviews ended half an hour ago." James felt his chest sink. He opened his mouth to argue, but nothing came. He saw other men in fine suits walking past him, talking confidently. Some glanced at him with smirks. As if he was foolish even to try, he lowered his head, took Mia's hand, and turned back toward the door. His legs felt heavy. Every step was a reminder of what he had lost. Outside, the city noise surrounded him. He sat down on a bench nearby. Staring at the busy street, his hands covered his face. Mia climbed onto the bench and rested her head on his shoulder. "It's okay, Daddy," she whispered. "You did the right thing." James wanted to believe her, but all he could feel was the crushing weight of failure. The chance to change their life was gone, all because he chose to help a stranger. Yet in the back of his mind, he wondered, was it truly gone, or had fate just taken a different turn? James walked slowly down the marble steps of the tall glass building. His shoulders were heavy, and his heart felt heavier. The city buzzed around him with people hurrying to their jobs, laughing into phones, and sipping coffee. But to James, it was all silent, only the sound of his own breath. Sharp and tired filled his ears. Mia's small hand squeezed his. "Daddy, don't be sad," she said softly. Her words were gentle, but they stabbed deep into his heart. He forced a smile for her sake. "I'm not sad, sweetheart, just thinking," but inside he was drowning. The interview he had waited months for, the job that could have lifted them out of endless struggle, it was gone. When he had stepped into that office lobby, the receptionist's words hit him harder than tea. "Any punch?" "I'm sorry, sir. The interview's ended half an hour ago." He could still see her pitying eyes. He could still feel the mocking glances of the other candidates. Polished men in perfect suits, walking out as if they already belonged. In that world, James saw the image of the empty chair in the interview room. The chair that could have been his chance, his moment. Instead, it sat there unused, cold, waiting for someone who never arrived on time. That chair haunted him now. It felt like a symbol of his whole life, always arriving too late, always being left behind. Mia tugged at his coat again. "Daddy, maybe they will call you back later." He nodded weakly. Maybe, but he knew the truth. No company ever called back a man who showed up late to his first chance. They walked home together. The streets looked longer than usual. Each step felt like carrying a weight on his back. His daughter skipped along, trying to cheer him, humming the little song she always sang before bed. James listened but couldn't sing with her this time. His throat was tight when they reached their small apartment. James unlocked the door. The room felt emptier than ever. The peeling wallpaper, the broken chair in the corner, the thin blanket on Mia's bed, it all reminded him of what he could not give her. He set Mia's lunchbox on the table, then sat down heavily, burying his face in his hands. "What kind of father am I?" he thought. "I cannot even hold on to a chance when it comes to me." But Mia, innocent and full of light, sat beside him. "Daddy, you helped that old lady," she said. "That was good. Maybe God saw it." James lifted his head and looked at her. Her smile was small, but real. He wanted to believe her words. He wanted to believe kindness would come back to him someday. But bills didn't wait. Rent didn't wait. Hunger didn't wait. Kindness did not pay for school fees. That night, after Mia fell asleep, James sat near the window, staring at the city lights. His stomach was empty, but he ignored it. The next evening was quiet in the small apartment. James stood at the stove, stirring a thin soup made mostly of water. He had skipped lunch to make sure Mia could eat enough. The smell was weak, but Mia smiled anyway. Sitting at the table, with her school books, to her, as long as her father was near, any meal felt like a feast. James tried to hide his tired face, but the weight of failure hung heavy on him. He had walked the city all day, searching for work. But doors kept closing. Sometimes they didn't even let him finish his words. He would return home with empty pockets, but with a smile forced on his face for his daughter. A knock came at the door, sharp and unexpected. James froze. Few people ever visited them. His heart raced, thinking of the landlord asking for late rent. He opened the door slowly, ready for bad news. But what he saw left him stunned. There stood the same old woman he had helped near the bus stop. Her face was familiar, but tonight she looked completely different. She wore a fine coat, her silver hair brushed neatly, a quiet strength in her eyes. She did not carry grocery bags this time. She carried an air of importance. "Mr. Carter," she said calmly, "may I come in?" James blinked, surprised that she knew his name. He stepped aside awkwardly. "Of course, please." Mia's eyes lit up when she saw her. "It's the lady we helped, Daddy." The woman smiled kindly at the child before turning back to James. "You do not know me properly," she said. "My name is Clara Anderson." The name sounded ordinary, but the way she carried herself was not. Clara walked inside and sat at the table, glancing at Mia's school books. Then she turned back to James. "You came to my company yesterday for an interview." James's chest tightened. He nodded slowly, ashamed. "Yes, but I was late." I understand. I missed my chance." Clara leaned forward, her eyes sharp yet gentle. "You were not late, Mr. Carter," she said. "You were exactly on time, just not for what you expected." James frowned. Unsure what she meant, Clara continued. "I was the stranger you helped with the groceries. You could have walked away, but you did not. You chose kindness over ambition." Mia looked at her father proudly. "I told you it mattered, Daddy." James shook his head. "But the interview? The job? It's already gone." His voice cracked. Clara studied him carefully. "I own that company. I was watching yesterday, not just the interviews, but also the kind of men who wanted to lead in my business. Many looked perfect on paper, but none of them stopped when a woman struggled outside their building. Only you did." Her words hung in the air like a sudden light in darkness. James felt his throat tighten. He didn't know what to say. Clara smiled faintly. "Skills can be taught. Experience can be gained. But true character cannot be faked. And you, Mr. Carter, showed me the kind of character I need in my company." James was silent. His mind spun. Could this be real? Could one act of kindness change everything? Mia leaned forward. "Does that mean my daddy gets the job?" Clara chuckled softly, then nodded. "Yes, but more than that, he will work directly with me. I want to train him myself. I want to see what he can become." James's eyes burned with tears. He looked down at his calloused hands that had lifted heavy bags, scrubbed floors, held his daughter close. Could those same hands now hold a future? He whispered, "Why me? Why not someone with more education, more polish?" Clara's voice was firm, because honesty and courage cannot be bought. "I can give you the tools, Mr. Carter, but I cannot give you the heart you already have." For the first time in years, James felt hope rise inside him. He looked at Mia, who smiled wide, her eyes shining like stars. She hugged him tightly. "See, Daddy, helping people is never wrong." James hugged her back, whispering into her hair, "You were right, sweetheart." Clara stood, adjusting her coat. "Be at my office tomorrow morning, not for an interview, but to begin. I expect you at 8 o'clock sharp." She gave one last warm glance at Mia, then stepped out into the night, leaving behind a silence filled with possibility. James closed the door slowly. He turned to the small apartment, which suddenly felt less heavy, less broken. He sat at the table, holding Mia close. A laugh escaped his lips, shaky but real for the first time. The empty chair in the interview room no longer haunted him, because tonight a new chair was waiting for him, one built not on timing, but on trust. The next morning, James stood nervously outside the tall glass building. The same building that had crushed his hope 2 days ago now looked different. The sunlight reflected off its surface, almost as if the world itself was telling him that today would be a new beginning. He straightened his borrowed tie, smoothed his worn jacket, and took Mia's hand. He had promised her he would try again, and now, because of Clara Anderson, He had been given a chance he never imagined. At exactly 8 o'clock, he stepped into the lobby. The receptionist who had dismissed him before now looked surprised. Her eyes flickered between James and the elevator as if she already knew he was expected. She said softly, "Top floor, sir. Ms. Anderson is waiting." Those words gave James both relief and fear. He entered the elevator, his heart beating faster with each floor rising. By the time the doors opened, his palms were damp. Clara's office was wide, filled with light. Bookshelves lined the walls, and tall windows revealed the city below. Clara herself stood near the window, looking out when she turned. Her eyes were sharp but not unkind. "Mr. Carter," she greeted. "Please, sit." James obeyed, his mind racing. What could she possibly want with him? Clara leaned on her desk, folding her arms. "I told you last night that I do not only hire skill, I hire character," she began. "But I need to know more about you before I place you in my company." She gestured for him to speak. James hesitated, then slowly began. He told her about his life, about losing his wife when Mia was still a baby, about working 3 jobs just to keep food on the table, about being turned away again and again because he lacked degrees or polished words. As he spoke, Clara listened silently. Her eyes never wavered. She did not interrupt. She did not rush him. When he finished, James lowered his gaze. "I know. I don't look like the man your company usually hires. But I can work harder than anyone. I just need a chance." For a moment, Clara said nothing. The silence stretched across the room. James felt the weight of it pressing down. Then she finally spoke, her voice steady. "Do you know why I built my company, Mr. Carter?" she asked. James shook his head. Clara continued, "Because once I was like you. People saw me as nothing. They laughed at me, doubted me, but one man, one stranger, believed in me. He gave me an offer when no one else would, and that offer changed everything." She stepped closer, her eyes burning with memory. "That is why I am here now, to return the same kindness I was given, to pass it forward." James's throat tightened. He had expected rejection, maybe pity, but not this. Not a story that sounded so much like his own. Clara sat down across from him. "I want to make you an offer," she said firmly. "Not just a job, but a future. You will work under me. You will learn directly from me. I will teach you everything I know about business, about leadership, about building something greater than yourself." James's mouth fell open slightly. He whispered, "Why me? There are so many others who are better than me." Clara shook her head. "Better on paper, perhaps, but paper cannot raise a child alone. Paper cannot choose kindness when it costs everything. Paper cannot carry groceries for a stranger, while knowing it might destroy their one chance. You can, you did. That is why I choose you." Mia, who had been waiting quietly in the corner, clapped her little hands. "Daddy, you're special." The first day at the company was harder than James had imagined. The glass doors opened, and he stepped inside, his heart pounding like a drum. Everyone in the lobby wore polished suits, expensive watches, and shoes that shined like mirrors. He glanced at his own jacket, neat but old, and felt the sting of being different. Clara had given him the position, but the other employees did not see what she saw. Whispers followed him as he walked past. "Who is he?" one muttered. "Some charity case?" another sneered. James kept his head down, reminding himself of Mia's smile that morning. "I will not quit," he thought. "I cannot quit." Clara greeted him in her office with a calm smile. "Welcome, Mr. Carter," she said. "Today, you begin. I want you to watch, listen, and learn. Do not try to impress. Just be yourself." James nodded. He was grateful, but also nervous. Being himself had never been enough for the world. Still, he promised her and himself that he would give everything he had. The hours passed slowly. James sat in meetings where Men and women spoke with big words, words he did not always understand. But instead of pretending, he wrote them down in a small notebook, every pause, every instruction. He recorded carefully. He stayed quiet, absorbing like a sponge. When the meeting ended, two younger employees chuckled as they walked past him. "He's taking notes like a schoolboy," one said loudly, the other laughed. "Wait until he sees real work. He'll run back to his little life." The words burned, but James did not. Answer: he had learned long ago that silence was stronger than anger. Instead, he opened his notebook again and studied harder. At lunch, James sat alone with a small sandwich he had packed from home. Around him, others ordered fancy meals, talking about vacations, cars, and houses. He listened quietly, but his mind drifted to Mia. He imagined her opening the small lunchbox he packed with care, smiling as she found her favorite cookie. That thought gave him strength. Clara noticed everything. She saw the whispers, the mocking, and the quiet way James carried himself. Later that day, she called him into her office. "How do you feel?" she asked. James hesitated, then spoke honestly. "I feel out of place. But I am here for the work, not for their approval." Clara's eyes softened with respect. "Good. Remember, storms are not meant to break you. They are meant to shape you." That night, James stayed late. When others rushed home, he remained in the office, reviewing files, learning systems, trying to understand every detail. The cleaning staff passed by and nodded politely, but even they could see his determination. When he finally left, the city was dark. He walked home with tired legs, but his heart felt a little lighter. Mia was waiting at the door. She jumped into his arms. "Daddy, how was it?" she asked. James smiled and kissed her forehead. "It was hard, sweetheart, but we will get through." The next days were no easier. The mocking continued. Some coworkers ignored him. Others tested him, giving him piles of work they didn't want to do. James accepted everything quietly. His hands worked late into the night, his eyes strained under dim light, but he never complained. One afternoon, when James was struggling with a large report, an older manager approached. "You missed a detail here," he said sternly. James's chest tightened, expecting scolding, but then the man added, "Fix it, learn. You have potential. Don't waste it." For the first time, someone besides Clara saw a spark in him. Slowly, little changes began to happen. A junior employee noticed how carefully James checked every document. Another saw how politely he treated even the cleaning staff. Soon, whispers of mockery turned into quiet nods of respect. It wasn't much, but it was something. At home, Mia listened eagerly to every story. "You're strong, Daddy," she said proudly. "You don't let them stop you." Her words became the fire that kept him going. One evening, Clara called him into her office again. She handed him a small stack of papers. "This is a trial task," she said. "Something important. If you do this right, you will prove not only to me, but to everyone else, that you belong." Here, James looked at the papers carefully. It was a project report for a major client. One mistake could cost the company money and trust. His hands trembled slightly as he held the file, but his eyes burned with determination. Clara studied him quietly. "I chose you, Mr. Carter, but now you must choose yourself. Show them who you are." That night, James carried the file home. He worked through the evening, while Mia sat beside him drawing pictures. When she noticed his tired eyes, she whispered, "I'll stay awake with you." "Daddy, you're not alone," James kissed her forehead. His heart was heavy with responsibility, but strong with purpose. He knew this was his trial, his test, and if he succeeded, life would never be the same again. The trial task had taken every ounce of James's energy. For 3 nights he worked on the project report, checking each page again and again. He wrote notes in his small notebook, corrected errors others had missed, and polished every detail until his tired eyes burned on the fourth morning. He walked into the office with the report in his hands. His clothes were plain, but his posture carried a new strength. He placed the file on Clara's desk. She opened it carefully. Reading page after page in silence, James stood there, nervous. His palms were sweating. His heart raced with every second she turned the pages. Finally, Clara looked up. Her eyes held a quiet fire. "This is excellent, Mr. Carter," she said. "You've done more than I expected." Relief washed over him. For the first time, he felt he might actually belong here, but fate was not finished testing him later that week. A storm struck the company. Not a storm of rain, but a storm of business. A major deal, the company's biggest contract of the year, was falling apart. The client was threatening to walk away. Millions were at risk. The office buzzed with panic. Employees rushed from desk to desk. Managers argued in heated voices. Clara stood in the center, calm but serious. James watched quietly. He saw the fear in the room. He saw the blame shifting from one person to another. And for a moment, he thought he should stay silent. This was beyond him. He was still new, still learning. What could he possibly add? But then he remembered Clara's words. "I chose you, but now you must choose yourself." Taking a deep breath, James stepped forward. "Excuse me," he said. His voice was steady, though his heart pounded. "May I suggest something?" The room went silent. Dozens of eyes turned toward him, some filled with disbelief, some with mockery. A junior employee whispered, "What's he doing?" "He's going." To embarrass himself, Clara raised her hand. Silencing the room, "Go on, Mr. Carter." James explained carefully. He had read through the client's concerns while working on his report. He realized the company was offering solutions that were too expensive and too complicated, he suggested. A simpler approach, one that focused on trust and long-term partnership instead of quick profit. At first, no one reacted. Then one manager scoffed. "That's too naive." Another added, "He doesn't understand how this business works." But Clara's eyes sharpened. She leaned forward. "Show me the details, Mr. Carter." James pulled out his notebook, every page filled with his late-night notes. He laid out his idea step by step. His voice grew stronger with each word. He spoke not from textbooks or fancy degrees, but from the wisdom of a man who had survived struggle, who understood trust and loyalty. When he finished, the room was silent. Again, Clara studied him for a long moment, then smiled faintly. "Prepare the presentation. We'll try it your way." Gasps filled the room. Some shook their heads in disbelief, but Clara's word was final that evening. James stood in the boardroom facing the client. His hands trembled slightly, but when he looked at Clara, she gave him a small nod of encouragement. He took a deep breath and spoke. He explained the new plan in simple words, clear and honest. He did not try to impress. The morning sun poured through the tall glass windows of the company. The building that once made James feel small now welcomed him like a second home. Employees greeted him with nods of respect. Some who had once whispered against him now smiled. Openly, the man they mocked had become the man who saved them. James walked through the lobby with steady steps. He was no longer the nervous single father clutching his tie too tight. He was stronger now. His shoulders carried pride instead of fear. His heart carried hope instead of doubt. When he reached Clara's office, she was waiting with her usual, calm presence. Her eyes studied him with approval. "Mr. Carter," she said warmly, "you've done well, better than I expected. Today, it is time for something more." James sat, unsure what she meant. Clara placed a folder on the table and pushed it toward him. "This is your promotion," she said. "You will not just assist anymore. You will lead." James blinked, his hands trembling as he opened the folder. His name was printed clearly on the page. Project Manager. His throat tightened. He looked up, unable to speak. Clara smiled gently. You earned this, not because of me, not because of luck, but because of who you are, your honesty, your courage. Your determination, they brought you here. Tears threatened to fall from James's eyes. He took a deep breath and whispered, "Thank you, Ms. Anderson. You believed in me when no one else would." Clara shook her head. "No, Mr. Carter. You believed in yourself when it mattered most. I only saw what others ignored." Later that day, Clara gathered the entire company for a meeting. All the employees filled the large hall, curious, waiting. James stood beside her, nervous but ready. Clara's voice carried across the room. "Many of you know Mr. Carter," she began. "Some of you doubted him, some of you mocked him. But when our company was at risk, when our biggest contract was about to collapse, he saved us," the crowd murmured, eyes turning toward James, some ashamed, some impressed. Clara continued, "From today forward, he will lead as our new project." Manager applause filled the hall. James stood frozen for a moment, then bowed his head humbly. He was not used to such recognition, but he felt Mia's words in his heart. "Daddy, you're strong." When the meeting ended, James walked out into the hallway. Several employees approached him, not with mockery this time, but with genuine respect. "Congratulations, Mr. Carter," one said. Another added, "We're glad you're with us." That evening, James returned home with a small box in his hand. Mia rushed to the door. "Daddy, what's that?" she asked excitedly. James knelt and opened the box to show her a pair of shiny new shoes. Her eyes widened. She squealed with joy. "For me." He nodded, smiling through tears. "For you, sweetheart. You'll never have to wear torn shoes again." Mia hugged him tightly, her little arms squeezing with all her strength. James closed his eyes, feeling her warmth. For the first time in years, he felt like he had kept his promise to her mother. He had given their daughter a better life. Days turned into weeks. James settled into his new role. He faced new challenges, new responsibilities, but he carried them with courage. Each night when he returned home, he still cooked dinner, still tucked Mia into bed, still told her stories until she drifted to sleep. One night, after finishing a long project, Clara invited James to her office. Once more, she poured 2 cups of tea and handed one to him. "Do you know why I trust you?" she asked. James shook his head quietly. Clara smiled. "Because when you missed your interview, you thought it was the end, but it was the beginning. You showed me that true leaders are not the ones who rush to sit in chairs on time. They are the ones who stop to help someone even when it costs them everything." Her words sank deep into his soul. James lifted his cup, his voice steady. "Then, I promise, Ms. Anderson, I will never stop being that man." Clara raised her cup in return, "And I promise to never stop believing in people like you." That night, as James walked home under the city lights, Mia walked beside him, holding his hand. The world still had struggles, still had storms, but